Good afternoon, all. It's a pleasure to be at the Arctic Circle Assembly for the third consecutive time. And when I first took part in this conference, the tone and the content was very different from now. The focus on the security aspects of the Arctic has become much stronger. And I take a little bit of responsibility for that because I spoke about NATO's concerns about the security developments in this region. Nevertheless, Mr. Grimson has asked me back to attend one final time in my role as the chair of the NATO Military Committee. And my message remains unchanged. Major geopolitical changes drive home the need to ensure security and stability in the Arctic as we see more strategic competition in the region. Russia's war on Ukraine has global implications, including in the Arctic, where Russia has even used its military facilities on the Kola Peninsula to attack Ukraine. After almost 1,000 days of full-scale war, Ukraine continues to bravely and successfully fight back against the Russian aggression. And they are supported in their right to self-defense by 50 nations around the world, including NATO allies. Our unprecedented military and financial support to Ukraine is not charity, but an investment in our own security. Also here in the High North. Ladies and gentlemen, for many years, constructive cooperation and peaceful dialogue benefited the Arctic and the nations in the region, including Russia. And this has accurately been described as high north, low tension. Unfortunately, this is no longer the case. Tensions are rising. And therefore, Arctic allies are crucial to ensure the alliance has the situational awareness and the capabilities to defend the high north and deter any potential aggressors. The historic accession of Sweden and Finland makes NATO stronger, also in the high north. And Nordic allies are investing deeply in their capabilities and equipment. And that means more jets and ships to better patrol the Nordic skies and seas and to detect non-allied submarines, including in the Arctic. This week, during the NATO Defense Ministerial in Brussels, 13 allies launched the North Link initiative. And this will explore the development of a secure, resilient and reliable multinational Arctic satellite communications capability. 4 weeks ago, we witnessed another significant milestone in Nordic defense cooperation, when the chiefs of defense of Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway and Sweden signed the Nordic defense concept. This deepens Nordic defense collaboration. And that couldn't have come at a better time, because Russia is continuing to ramp up its military presence in the Arctic, which is home to the Northern Fleet, nuclear submarines, missile facilities, airfields, radar stations and troops. Now, Russia's largest force is stationed on the Kola Peninsula, which shares a border with Norway and Finland. In September, Russia conducted a major naval and air exercise in the Arctic Ocean called Ocean 24 and reportedly deployed 2 nuclear submarines under the Arctic polar ice cap. We are also increasingly witnessing cooperation between Russia and China in this region. And this cooperation has a clear military aspect to it. China joined Russia in the Ocean 24 exercise. And at the start of this month, China's Coast Guard vessels entered the Arctic Ocean for the first time, patrolling the waters jointly with Russian ships. Now, 2 years ago, the Chinese ambassador to Iceland accused me of paranoia and arrogance when I predicted at this conference that China would go into the Arctic Ocean. And as it turns out, it was, in a way, unfortunately, an accurate prediction. And this particular Sino-Russia mission underscores the growing and concerning cooperation between Beijing and Moscow, also in the Arctic. Russia is also increasingly cooperating with China on minerals and shipping routes, which could affect stability in polar regions. In June, Russia's state nuclear agency Rosatom and a major Chinese shipping company announced a partnership to establish a year-round container shipping line along the Arctic Northern Sea route. Last month, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov vowed that Moscow would defend its interest in the Arctic, both in diplomatic and military terms. As one can expect from a defensive alliance, NATO will also defend its interest in this region. And the High North is important for the whole alliance. We have a responsibility to protect all our allies, including the 7 here in the Arctic. And we want to uphold the international rules-based order, which includes freedom of navigation. NATO's concept for deterrence and defense of the Euro-Atlantic area, in short the DDA, places transatlantic security at the center of NATO. Key part of our DDA family of plans are the regional plans that describe how we will defend key and relevant places within our alliance. And they go hand in hand with our new force structure requirements. And that means that allies now know precisely what assets or capabilities are required of them in a war scenario, including where and what to deploy and what their tasks would be. The Regional Plan Northwest specifically covers the Atlantic and the European Arctic. The region falls under the command of the Allied Joint Force Command in Norfolk in the United States. Joint Force Command Norfolk provides and coordinates activity to ensure NATO's deterrence and defense for the whole of the North Atlantic, and ensures that NATO's force posture supports Arctic operations. We are already testing our new plans with exercises in the High North. A good example was exercise Nordic Response in March this year, part of Steadfast Defender 2024, our biggest exercise since the Cold War. Late this summer, Iceland hosted exercise Northern Viking 24, where allies led by the US Naval Forces Europe focused on how to protect the strategic waterways and airspace surrounding this country. As the gateway to the North Atlantic, the Arctic hosts vital trade and communication links between North America and Europe. NATO and allies are dedicated to the security of undersea pipelines and cables. And therefore, we have firstly established a specialized maritime center for security of critical undersea infrastructure under NATO's Maritime Command. Secondly, created an undersea infrastructure coordination cell to map the vulnerabilities and coordinate efforts between NATO allies, partners, and the private sector. And thirdly, we doubled the number of ships patrolling the North and the Baltic Seas, stepped up intelligence sharing, and conducted a series of protective military activities through the Joint Expeditionary Force. Arctic allies are strengthening their cooperation to enhance their presence and capabilities in the High North. Canada and Nordic countries plan to create a new Arctic security dialogue to coordinate on defense, intelligence, and cyber threats. The United States, Canada, and Finland have announced their intent to build new polar icebreakers through the Icebreaker Collaboration Effort Agreement, or ICE Pact, along with other allies and partners. And the Pentagon has updated its Arctic strategy, focusing on exercising US presence in the region, and training with allies and partners. Just last week, the US chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown, was here in Iceland to meet with other Arctic chiefs of defense, underscoring US engagement and the importance of the region for NATO. And on the diplomatic front, the US Senate on 19 September confirmed the Alaskan Mike Sraga as the nation's first Arctic ambassador. So there are positive developments, but we need to do more. Ladies and gentlemen, the Icelandic foreign minister recently said we have to be vigilant in the face of the changing security environment in the Arctic. And I couldn't agree more. And I would like to stress that Iceland continues to be strategically important because of its location. Few states have a greater interest in the sustainable development of the area than Iceland, since all of the country and a large part of its territorial waters lie within the Arctic region. Climate change is rapidly reshaping the Arctic, which is warming almost 4 times faster than the rest of the world. Reduction in sea ice due to climate change means that new shipping routes come into play, making them economically and militarily significant. If these routes open up, there is a military challenge of strategic importance. Russia can use its Pacific fleet in our area of operations much easier and faster than before, which will of course be addressed militarily by NATO, as one can expect from a defensive alliance. The alliance is committed to understanding and adapting to the security implications of these massive changes, so clearly visible and felt here in Iceland and in the wider Arctic region. NATO allies will continue to deter aggression, protect our values and interests, and keep our people, 1 billion people, safe. This has been our mission for 75 years. And NATO will always keep fighting for freedom, democracy, and upholding the rules-based international order. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your questions.